and the magic energy that they first sensed, they no longer caught a whiff of. That went on for about a month or two, when he very suddenly and very out of nowhere came to the people who took him in and explained his suspicion that they were members of a cult. And at first they denied it, but he pressed them, and eventually they relented, and he expressed interest in joining the cult. So they brought him as an initiate to their superiors, and they offered him membership. When they offered him membership, he looked around at this little gathering of nobodies in this room, in this basement of this village, and shook his head and said that it would not do, that he means to rule it. He means to lead the cult. At that point, they all fell on him. They attacked him, roughed him up quite a bit, placed him in bonds, and dragged him to their superiors, one of whom is one of its inner circle, one of the ribs. Brought him to Yorksis, here at Kiska in the library. Yorksis kept him prisoner here for a little while, and the man answered all of his questions as far as he could tell truthfully, and he continued to insist that he had the intent of ruling this cult, of bringing them to a new era of dominance over the world, with a new grand design led by a new dark god. Yorksis decided to sacrifice him to Ith directly, to take him to the Shadowfell in chains, drag him there, and let Ith eat him. But when he was placed in front of Ith, the dragon lowered his head, sniffed deeply of this man who is in chains and bondage and ragged clothes before him, raised his head, and then declared this man was a prophet of Naruk, of a dark god who wields power more powerful than Ith himself, and that now Ith himself was going to bend the knee to this dark god, which shocked everybody in the room. The leader of the cult is called the Heart of Ith. That is that's the circle that Gendrid now holds himself. The previous leader was an elf named Nopos, a sand elf, who had been Ith's companion for many years. At Ith's declaration, he immediately killed Nopos and placed Gendrid at the head of the cult, decreed that the cult would now follow the path of the death god Naruk. Among the lieutenants, Yorksis stepped forward and defiantly. His theory was that Gendrid wielded some form of magic, some form of otherworldly control that none of them had sensed, that none of them had seen coming. And at his defiance, Ith immediately killed him as well. And ever since, Gendrid has been in control of the cult. And technically, Ith is still in control, but Ith gets all of his commands from Gendrid.
And when she describes Yorksis as a death, does she show any emotion at all? Is she upset by this?
Sadness.
Yeah. And then Zook will kind of say, like, to her when he sees this, just kind of say, so that's what happened to him. I was wondering about that.
Then she adds, defiance will get us nowhere. And whether it serves my interests or not, this is the direction Ith wishes to move. She looks around the room, gauging your all reactions, and she says, and though it is not my wish, it is my duty to serve him, and continue to do so. So I ask again, what are your intentions concerning the cults?
Do you agree with Yorksis that Gendrid must have been wielding some sort of power and it wasn't in his right mind?
She shakes her head and says, Yorksis was incorrect in second-guessing the infinite wisdom of Ith. She says, I trust Ith infinitely. If this is the direction when he wishes to move, it is the direction that I must move. My personal beliefs and wishes do not enter into it. She says, I was commanded here, placed in Yorxus's role, and was told if anybody came around Kiska, and she motions and points to Tarin, Orphan, and Zook in turn, especially you three. I was supposed to trap you and deliver you. Gendrid has some use for you that I do not understand.
Yeah, he has a bad for us.
We can fill that in for you. I'll start telling the story of how we came to be on the world and the pirate ship and everything.
Okay. So you just tell her about the first events, the pirate ship, how you all blinked in here, Gendrid was keeping you prisoner, and then you mutiny and took over the ship. That's where the story ends.
Yeah, I don't think I think I'll let somebody else decide whether or not it's a good idea to tell her that Gendrid wants to kill us in order to bring Naruk back.
Okay. And she nods and says that's fits with what we know of Gendrid's history, that he woke up on the shores of Romneus, half dead.
And Zook will just sort of say, yeah, and when Orphan's done talking, you say, more or less the same story for me. The transportation from the ship, from my ship to this ship, to this world.
And she says, you have to understand my perspective, though. From where I'm sitting, if your mutiny had not succeeded, Gendrid would never have come to the cult. None of this would have happened.
Gendrid had bad intentions for this plane of existence, whether he did it through your cult or not. That's why he brought us here in the first place.
Nonetheless, he's your responsibility.
And we need to take care of our responsibility. That's what we were hoping to get your assistance with.
You can tell that she's conflicted. She says...
Sorry, can I... Okay.
She says, if I could be presented with some assurance that you mean the cult no harm, that no evil will come to Ith himself, that if he is indeed shackled by this priest, he will be unshackled. She says, only then could I assist you, and only then with deep reservations.
I mean, our target is Gendrig, so we can.
Yeah, with Gendrid dead, there's no way that Naru can come back. Gendrid knows all the rituals. This is Gendrid's thing. This is his entire agenda.
So she asks, where do we go from here? What is to become of me now?
Can I, out of character for a minute, can you remind me what exactly it was that we were trying to verify? I remember
your conversation with Locke. You said you couldn't take him up on his deal because you couldn't trust him. You didn't know what sort of extraplanar entity he was, and he was being really cagey about it. Yep. So he offered you an assurance. He gave you the information about Muriel, that she is one of the lieutenants you were seeking, and that you could verify that what he said was in fact true, which you've now done. Okay. So the question now... he is not... The question of what to do with Muriel is a separate question of what to do with Locke.
So, but if I'm remembering right, Locke also, one of the things he promised us was something like some way of control over her, right? Somebody else.
He didn't give you a name, but yes, one of the 3 envelopes he said the true name of one of Gendrid's lieutenants.
Okay.
And that with knowledge of this name, you would be able to neutralize her completely.
But the cost for that was the body of her and Gendrid after we killed them.
Yes, he wanted...
That's right.
What was it exactly he wanted?
The cost for the first one was letting him walk through the door. The cost for the second one was the eyes, or freeing his lieutenants, or the eyes if they were, gone to madness or whatever. And the cost for the third one was the body.
Right. So, in exchange for this true name, his payment, he expected the hearts, brains, and eyes of Gendrid and this particular lieutenant.
Which is not
Okay,
Muriel. Somebody else.
Well, we don't think it's Muriel. But I'm gonna ask Muriel if Gendred has a close lieutenant. Who are the people closest to him in the power structure?
He says all of the ribs of Ith serve Ith equally, and therefore serve Gendred. The heart of Ith sits above all of us.
How many ribs are there?
There were 7 until Yorxus' death. Now there are 6. Tradition dictates that a 7th should be appointed, but that hasn't happened yet.
So you're 1. Who are the other 5?
She says, I can't give you this knowledge without assurance that you won't use it against the cult. And I'm afraid your word is not good enough. So we're at an impasse.
Would you be able to... Are the other ribs so loyal to Ith that we could have this... that we wouldn't be able to have this sort of conversation with them? Would we be in danger approaching them?
You would be in danger approaching any of them. You were in grave danger approaching me, but you seem to have overcome that danger. She says all of them are loyal to Ith. That's why they are placed in the position they are placed in. Whether or not they are all loyal to Gendred, I couldn't say.
That was going to be my next question, is are they loyal to Gendred? You have no knowledge of that?
They are not openly defiant. If they were, Ith would destroy them.
You have your suspicions?
Can I ask you one other thing?
Yeah, go ahead.
You seem to react noticeably when we dropped Locke's name. Do you know him?
She nods. She says...
What do you know of him?
Recently, less than 3 months ago, Gendred and Locke began some sort of collusion. They entered in some sort of agreement, the nature of which I do not know. But Gendred betrayed him, tried to kill him, trap his soul. I don't know what he needs the soul for, but Mr. Locke got the upper hand. We were not able to damage or destroy him, but he fled. And we haven't seen him since. But he is a being of great and terrible power. And she shakes her head. She says, I don't.
Have you seen him for what he actually looks like?
And again, she shakes her head. She said, to me, he looked like a man. I assumed him to be a powerful warlock. And for all I know, Gendred did as well.
Well, seems like we've learned about as much as we can from each other from now, without any
So what would be
assurances
enough?
Yeah, there
Sorry.
She says she doesn't know. She says you're asking for her help to topple the rightful leader of an organization she's been a member of for centuries, an organization that she has great reverence for, that she's devoted her life to. At the same time, though, she has seen how that reverence was paid by a couple of her higher-up members.
Zook just raises an eyebrow and says, rightful?
Well, it's going to count as rightful if it himself did the coronation.
She nods and says, that's exactly the case.
Zook kind of shrugs at that. Not disrespectfully, but he thinks that this is not the way it should be going.
Can we at least have your assurance that you won't report on any of today to the rest of your organization until we can do some more research on our own?
She says she'll keep mum for now. But she'll know if you raise arms against any of the other ribs. She'll know if you enter its domain in the Shadowfell. And if either of those things happen, that she would have to set wheels in motion. That she would have to strive to stop you.
That's fair enough.
And she says, and by way of explanation, rather than warning, I tell you If it comes to pass that we are enemies, I won't be bringing a trapping book.
Arik lets out an obnoxious yawn.
She looks at the 8 empty wine bottles at Eric's feet. Just kicking her on the floor.
And Zook says to her, "Oh, go ahead."
She asks again. She says, "So what is to become of me? Am I your prisoner? Am I to be put to death?"
There doesn't have to be any consequence. We'd like you to join us, free your cult of this usurper. Because, let's be honest, that's really what Gendrick is. At the very least, we're hoping we can trust you to not stand against us.
She says, "That's what Yorks has thought as well."
But until we can...
Go ahead.
Oh, I said... But until we can... we can properly assure you that we don't mean to move against your organization, against the cult of Ith. We'll settle for your silence for now.
She nods. She says, "Then you'll have it. For now."
Out of character, does Zook want to ask her about the mysterious floor?
I'm sorry, about what? Oh, I don't know. Okay, let me ask you this, Brick Road.
Okay.
From what we know of this building, from observing it from the outside, does Zook have reason? Would Zook suspect that there is another floor? Or what? I mean, or
No, there's definitely not a third floor to the building. If there was another room, it would have to be at the basement level. And Orphan
Or
was
down
taught
at
the
Plain.
word. Orphan was taught the word to open the door by lock.
right?
Oh, that's right. I still haven't used that word.
I mean, it's probably just where she keeps her stuff. I mean,
Do you inquire about it?
I'm trying to
Orphan's
think
gonna
how
go-
this would make
Orphan's
sense
gonna
in
go down
character.
to the first floor, and just use the word while she's on the first floor, while Meryl is up here.
Do you give any? Do you excuse yourself in any way, or do you just stand up and walk away?
I excuse myself.
Okay. Does anybody else at the table distract Muriel in any way? Because otherwise, she's going to follow Orphan downstairs.
I mean, we would keep talking to her. I mean,
Okay.
but
Yeah. Start talking. Let's hear it.
crap, I forgot where we were at in the conversation.
Could ask her to talk about what's his name? Her
Oh
partner.
yeah. So tell, I mean, who was Yorksis to you? Was he your husband, your lover?
She nods.
And
You.
you?
What do you
Okay.
ask about Yorksis? What information are you seeking?
Do you know why he would have thought that it was being controlled by Gendred?
She says Yorksis was a powerful warlock that drew his magics directly from Ith. Ith was his patron. So, if anyone were to know immediately that there was something amiss in Gendred's words, it would have been Yorksis. And Destil, the mention of Ith being his patron tells you specifically that Ith is a level of power above most mortal creatures.
Right.
To be able to have enough power, you have to have a level of infinity and able to give it away to mortals. Which is not totally unheard of for dragons, but it's extremely rare. It's not something that would come up a lot. Not that there really is a common way to become a warlock, but
This would be a Fey Dragon pact.
yes.
Fey Shadow Dragon.
Yes. That would be
Or Shadow Dragon.
that would
Yeah.
be your assumption, I would think. Orphan, you go downstairs and speak the word.
Yeah.
Without any fanfare, without any noise, no flash of light, no nothing. You find yourself standing in a basement level with no light.
Shit.
There are not actually chains and stuff on the wall. This was just the only other room. Actually, you find yourself in this room here.
Okay.
There's not a door here either. That doesn't actually go anywhere. There's a door here that leads into this room here. I'm sorry, not a door, a doorway, a stone archway. The construction of the stone. First of all, you notice it's very cold in here. Very cold and very dark. But you have dark vision, yes?
Yeah.
Okay. Second thing you notice then is the walls are not made of sandstone, which would be your assumption anywhere in Kiska, basically. Through the doorway you look, and you see walls filled with books. This is all one big room. There's this. Just ignore the dots and the chain. This room's actually a lot freakier than I was expecting it to look.
Yeah, when you said that she got teleported to that room, I was like, oh shit, she's in the sex dungeon.
Yeah, you showed up in Ravenhair Giggle Dungeon, and
Yeah, it's the giggle dungeon.
I like to imagine that some of the books are actually chained to the wall.
so yeah, you see
Yeah.
bookshelves, at least 100 shelves filled with books.
Is that all there is? This is just like one giant library.
That's all there is.
Are there
here.
any tables or anything around?
There are not.
Okay.
There's a lectern in one end of the room
okay.
where you can sit and read a book, but no, there's no tables, and hard to tell the color of anything in the room because it's pure darkness, but
Yeah.
you know it's way too cold to be in Romneus, and it's not made of sandstone. It's worked stone. It's not just a cave. Definitely a basement level somewhere, but you are not in Kansas anymore, Dorothy.
I'm gonna take 3 books off the shelf from about right here.
Okay, you reach up to touch a book. You need to make a Constitution save, DC 21.
Eesh, yeah, I had a bad feeling
Right.
about that. Oh!
Oh, that was gonna be it. But
Uh-oh.
now, no.
Failed it.
Pretty bad.
Pretty bad. Like how bad? How bad are we talking?
Like I got a 6.
A 6. That's pretty bad.
Yeah.
Okay, let me add some
It rolled
stuff
right. It rolled right from a 20 to the 5.
Orphan.
Mhm.
You take 51 lightning damage. And you are incapacitated.
All right.
Right, you're
You
stuck
reach
in
out to touch
game.
the book, and you don't even get your fingers on the book. Your fingers just barely break the plane of the front of the bookshelf, and electricity courses through your body. Painful, painful lightning. And your muscles begin to spasm, and you roll backwards on the ground, just twitching. Your bones, your hands and toes contorting in painful shapes, and it's agony. You can't even get a sound out of your mouth. And you are going to be that way for 1 hour.
God
Nobody
damn
else
it.
knows the word in
And
here.
nobody knows you're there. So back upstairs.
Question.
Yes.
Did we know that? Did we know that he told her that word? Was anyone else with her?
That's up to Orphan.
Well, no.
Actually,
'cause
no. Eldove was there.
Eldove was there.
knows the word.
Okay. So yeah, Eldove knows the word. Whether or not they told you all the word or that they knew it is up to them.
Yeah.
Unless Orphan told me not to, I probably would have. I've been sharing pretty much everything.
Okay.
I didn't tell anybody. I didn't tell anybody the word, but I wouldn't have told Eldove.
I would have at least told Tarin.
Okay.
Okay.
So Tarin and Eldove know it, and nobody else does.
Sounds about right.
Yeah.
So you all are having a conversation about Yorksis, and you see very intense sadness when she talks to him. She had a deep caring for this person. Their charge here was to oversee some of its. He doesn't have very many interests in Kiska, but it is a place where magic tends to find itself from all corners of the world. And so their job basically here was to any interesting information they were to learn, any items that they were able to obtain through trade in Kiska would be taken back and given to Ith as tribute. And in this way, over the course of a couple hundred years, Ith managed to increase his magical power using non-violent and very low-risk means. And that was Yorksis and Ravenhair's job here. And after
Is
5
it-
minutes, Orphan does not return. Ravenhair looks back at the door and says, "Is your friend all right?"
Tarin will just sort of, I'm sure she's fine.
She's fine. Arik, you were about to say something.
Yeah, I'm not up on my cults, so...
You're not
Is
up
it
on your religions.
well, not either, but... why non-violent? Because what I'm trying to understand is that if your methods and means were supposed to be as unviolent as possible, and then
Make me and everybody at the table can make this if you want. Arcana, Nature, or History, whichever you would like to make. Go ahead and roll it. Anybody at the table, because I feel like some of you might know the answer to Eric's questions.
History, I know that.
I have none of those, so I'm just going to roll a dice, and we'll see what happens.
Actually,
I got a...
Eldove, you can take it with advantage if you want.
Okay.
Because you've actually done some research into this topic.
I rolled a 1.
That's a 26 history check.
26.
And a 15 nature?
15.
17 Arcana.
Okay. Anybody that got over 15, and Eldove will have extra information on top of this. Dragons are very solitary and very covetous creatures. Many dragons have irrationally large treasure hoards, and they add to it for no reason other than to add to it. Eldove in particular, because you've done research into this evil red dragon that you keep saying you're going to hunt down, she doesn't do this by going out into the world and blowing things up. She doesn't rape, pillage, burn everything to the ground. That's not a good way for a dragon to be alive for very long. The way she does it is she has an army of underlings who serve her that go out into the world and in small skirmishes take what they can. She herself doesn't typically bring the fire outside of her mountain, so to speak. If she did, there would be much less Dunfoss. So, when Arik asks the question about why non-violent, you immediately pick up, because that would be an excellent way to tell everybody in Kiska, hey, there's a really powerful, ancient, and dangerous dragon out there, and someone needs to go slay it.
You don't get to 2,000 years by being reckless.
Is that your answer at the table?
Yeah.
And Ravenhair concurs. She nods and says, I believe the expression is, you catch more flies with honey.
Except she seems to have no problem killing underlings who question her.
She says, no repercussion will come to Ith. Also, Ith is a male. You should see his majestic
whatever.
Dragon penis.
Yes, whatever.
And you see this wistful look in her eyes as she stares off into the middle distance. Khalil.
Hey, she's been a widower for a little while.
I mean, what kind of disciple would I be if Oscorm decided to just kill me?
Khalil.
A drowned one, probably.
Yeah.
Khalil, walking around the bazaar, you see one jar on a table of a type of jam, the name of which you can't even pronounce. And because you have the silver eye and you can detect magic, you see that the jam is magical. And the asking price is 300 gold pieces.
100 gold pieces for jam, huh?
300 gold pieces, no refunds.
Well,
Oh shit, I forgot about Khalil.
welcome to the club.
Now, you also know, though, that there are a lot of hucksters here in the bazaar. A lot of people selling snake oil. But the jam's magical.
He can see this is magical.
I've it as per the spell detect magic, yes?
Yes, so you can tell it's magical. That's about all you can tell. You can't tell what the magic technically does.
What school of magic is
Yeah,
this?
that's what I was about to ask. I'm looking up the spell right now.
Fruitastic. It's the Fruitastic school.
So, are you saying it's magically delicious?
It's jamtacular. 300 gold. You're not allowed to try it. No refunds, no take-backsies. Once in a lifetime opportunity.
There's a brain on a trolley. You have to pick whether it goes left or right.
Somebody standing behind you wants to buy it and is offering 400.
Well, if they're offering 400, I really can't stop them from that.
You have 693 gold pieces on you right now.
I do. but as you very well noted, Brick Road, there are a lot of monsters in this city.
All right, so
And,
you pass up the once in a lifetime magic jam.
Yep.
All right. So back in the conversation.
Sure.
No.
No.
Let's do it.
It's 450 now.
You said 300.
Well, yeah, but there's a guy behind you who's going to spend 400. He's overheard this whole conversation.
I just love the idea of Khalil with his eye is going nuts, looking at this jar of jam.
So you've got to get.
He's
You,
like-
you have to offer at least 401.
I like that's a jar of
410.
jam too.
410 sold
410.
for 410. Jar of magic jam.
Write that down on your character sheet.
Is the jam magical or the jar magical?
Yeah.
The jam.
The jam is magical.
And as
Okay.
soon as the transaction is complete, the stall blinks away in a puff of smoke.
I enjoy the hell out of the fact that this is the first use of his magical eye.
So back in the conversation, we were talking about Yorksis the Warlock and why Ith doesn't just go out and use conquest to achieve his ends. And immediately Eldove says, because that's a good way to get killed.
Yeah, and Arik's response is, "What good is a god with no disciples?"
She shakes her head and says, Ith is not a god. And he has many disciples nonetheless. She said,
And
surely your god would strike you dead if you defouled his name.
Her name.
And she gets a wistful look in her eyes. And surely if you use the powers given to you by your goddess in a profane or offensive manner to her, she would punish you.
Yeah.
She says, surely in the walls of Kiska, if you break the laws of the Jal, you are put on a cross. This does not mean that Kiska is interested in conquest of the surrounded lands. Only that it means to punish its citizens that break its word.
What do you know about the attempt on the Jal, or the successful attempt on the Jal's daughter?
She shakes her head. She says, I know nothing about it. I knew it was a plot of Gendrid's, that he entrusted it to low-level... they actually have a name. The outer layer, the Hide of Ith is the name. I can go ahead and give you the name of the 5 circles, I guess. The lowest level, which is the one that Ka was on, he would be the Hide of Ith. In between that, you have the Eyes of Ith. The Eyes of Ith are an inner circle that run the smaller cells, independent of each other, up and down the coast. And the Eyes are people who have met Ith in person and who are blood-bounded to him. They undergo a ritual which they exchange blood. Above
Until
them,
he kills them. Arik says snarkily.
Above them are the Tongue of Ith, which are the highest level cultists that have its power here in Romneus, and then above them are the 6 Ribs.
How many members does the cult have all told here in Romneus? Or in Trennis?
Let's see.
How many hats do they have?
Ravenhair is not wearing a hat at all. Let me do a quick calculation here. She says there's about 1,400 members up and down the coast.
A lot of fireballs. I didn't say that out loud.
Right.
Zuko kind of doubling back a little bit is like, is it strange that there would be an operation carried out, a murder in an assassination in your town that you're located in without you being notified?
She shakes her head. She says no. She says the cult operates as a series of independent cells. A lot of times there's only a very loose organization between them. Orders come down, they are carried out. They're not necessarily shared side to side. She says each of the Ribs, each of the members of my circle have our own functions and responsibilities to perform independent of the others. She says the other Ribs, for example, never interfered with my and Yorksis' work here.
Is it unusual that someone would act so overtly to make the heart of Ith a enemy of Kiska? Because right now he's wanted by the Jal. Like, that's pretty overt compared to what we were talking about earlier about that's not how you don't That's not how you live for 2,000 years.
She says, yes, I agree with you. It was overt indeed. And were I one to make the call, I would never have made it. I can only surmise that If has some design that required the death of Djalna.
You mean Gindred? Gindred had some design.
She says, Gendred's designs are Ith's designs. He is the heart of Ith. He speaks for the dragon.
Tarin will mind link to
Can't.
the Zook.
I'm still
we
holding
brought the
magical
spear up?
orb.
Oh, never mind.
Yeah, he's got the orb out
I
still.
brought it upstairs with me and just,
Okay.
I set it on a counter behind me or something.
Okay.
Orphan, roll a dex check.
Okay.
Wait, you're dead?
Dex, not death.
Oh, I thought you said death save. I was like, holy shit.
That's gonna be terrible, but dex check. That's an 8.
You start twitching much less dexterously. So what other information are you guys looking to press out of Ravenhair? After another 5 minutes or so, she looks back at the door. She says, where does your friend say she was going?
Don't think she did.
Arik shrugs.
Maybe she need to use the little tiefling's room.
She asks if we're done here.
Zook will just kind of say, are you sure you don't want to help us more directly to help avenge what's happened to your, don't say God, your dragon and your husband?
She says, so far you haven't offered any evidence that anything has happened.
Well, you know that your husband was killed.
I know that it was the will of Ith that he die, and that Gendred be placed at the heart. Again, my personal feelings don't enter into the equation.
And I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be disrespectful. I guess I can't understand. It seems so simple to me, like that Gindred came and everything changed. For you personally and for your group altogether, it sounds like you had a relatively peaceful, or at least not outlandish group.
Roll a
that was serving under
persuasion check.
I knew it was going to come to that, and I was thinking, man, I really wish I had trained persuasion instead of deception, because I don't think I've used deception, in forever. Oh, that's actually not half bad. It's an 18.
Okay. She interrupts you partway through your, aren't you sure you want to, blah, blah, blah. She says, if I gave you a name, one of the other ribs, someone you might contact, someone who might be more forthcoming, someone who has less to lose.
That would be very helpful.
She nods at the glowing orb in your hand, that's still crackling with electricity. She says, you'll have to bring more than those little trinkets if you mean him any hostility.
If we approach him unarmed and with our without dangerous intentions, would we be well received?
She shakes her head and says she doesn't know. She says his name is Ashatiru. Ashatiru is an extraplanar being who has lived here since time immemorial. The other ribs are frightened of him, frightened of what he can do. And I believe, although I cannot prove, I believe that he would oppose Gendred openly if he knew he had support.
Why?
Ashatiru is from a place where there are no dragons, where there are beings of greater power still, unimaginable power. He serves Ith, it is my belief, as a means to further his personal goals. He doesn't hold the same reverence as the rest of us do. He doesn't hold Ith in worship. He does. I mean, obviously, otherwise he wouldn't have attained such a high level within the cult. But I don't believe he is sincere. I believe he's biding his time. It's been known for a long time that he wished to become the Heart himself. There had been rumors that he had plans in effect to remove Nopos from power before Gendred had the opportunity to. I believe the reason Ashitiru has not openly opposed Gendred is because he believes he can do it behind the curtain and seize power for himself.
And you think if we approach him, he may decide to oppose him openly with our help?
She says, I can't even begin to know what Ashitira would do. But if you're looking for an ally within the cult, someone who would openly oppose Gendred, you would have to start with him.
If we were to convince Ashitiru to join us, would you join us as well? Would that be enough?
She says, I don't believe you can convince Ashitiru of anything.
Where can we find him?
And did I write down where he is? Oh, my notes are incomplete. My laptop died before I saved that note.
Oh no!
Oh no!
Wing it.
No, it's okay. She gives you the name of a village on the coast of Romneus. Says that he has his rather humble quarters there. That he maintains the shape of a human while amongst mortals. But
From what you know of him?
What his tasks are for Ith, she does not know.
From what you know about him, what it would be the wisest way to approach him?
She looks up at Arik and says, a great deal of holy protection.
That's in character.
Just bust out laughing.
Yeah.
Holy protection.
Captain, do you have anything else? I think that's a good lead, if nothing else.
No, I think that's all of my questions for now.
And then she turns and starts heading down the stairs.
Alright, Tarin will go downstairs with her.
Yeah, I mean, I have no reason to stop her. Nodal, you were there with that conversation. Would you have any reason to stop her?
I mean, why?
Yeah, fair enough.
When you come downstairs, you notice she's standing in the middle of the room. And she's looking between the two bookshelves on either wall. With a worried look on her face. And when she sees you guys coming out of the door behind her, she spins around. And she says, did Locke teach you the word? Did Locke tell you what this place is?
Arik looks confused.
Zook looks very confused.
Eldove looks at Destil. Tarin.
Orphan twitches on the ground for a little bit.
Khalil's sitting in an inn, just staring at this thing in jam. Right?
You haven't eaten it yet?
No. I'm not the jam expert. I'm trying to get as much information from it as I can, but by detect magic eye before turning it over to our jam expert.
I don't know if he's an expert so much as an enthusiast.
Yeah. we have to get the jam identified.
So, yeah, she's standing in the room. She asked, did Locke tell you what this place is?
Locke just told us who you were.
Tarin will say no and yes.
Eldove looks exasperated at that and says, yes, he told us what this place was.
Zook just looks at the two of them like, what the hell are you talking about?
She says, that rather changes the nature of the conversation, doesn't it?
I don't know what you mean, and I sure wish I did.
She says, if you know what this place is, then you know that any attempt to launch an attack on Gendred or Ith would begin here. this would be where you cut off. Is there any look of recognition as she starts to describe what the library is?
Can I
Tarin
ask
only
her the
was told the
character
word.
if I would have any? Because I don't.
As far as I know, I only know the word too, so I'm
Right.
just gonna fake
Tarin
it.
was assuming he was gonna have to plane shift everybody over there.
Right. And so yeah, because Locke told you the word, but didn't actually tell you what you would find.
Yeah, I was flat with her. I said no and yes.
So she
Eldove
starts to
is just faking it. Like, yeah, I know what you're talking about. Yeah.
she starts
Oh,
to
God.
explain. She starts to say any attack would have to start here to cut off, and then she stops talking when she sees Tarin and Zook just kind of standing there. And she looks at Eldove, and Eldove's, oh yeah, sure, of course.
Eldove says
roll a deception
they weren't
check.
in the room when we were talking.
Roll a deception check.
I missed all of that. Just like after. Well, that changes the tenor of our conversation.
You weren't here, so that's okay.
Eldove, deception check. You got to beat a 23.
I'm rolling things. Don't worry.
Cool.
Fuck.
Oh,
What is with fives? Did you curse this die?
All
Nick?
fives. I did load in some d20s that always roll fives. So she looks at
So
Eldove.
yeah, that's a fail.
She stops mid-sentence, and then she says, "What did Locke tell you?" And she gives you this glare. Zook, are you still holding the grenade?
Oh yeah, I
Okay.
just carried it downstairs with me. I'm just holding it like a baby.
She says, "What did Locke tell you?"
You know what? Let's make this dramatic. Eldove says, well, for one thing, he told us that the way into your sanctum was to say, and then he says the word.
And Eldove, without any fanfare, without any glowing lights or pops or noise, and to the rest of you, it looks like he vanishes before he says the word. He gets up to when we say, and then he's gone. Eldove, you appear in this little room. You
Does he see?
look through the doorway, you see all the bookshelves along the wall, and you see Orphan laying on the ground on her back, contorted in anguish. And Zook thinks this is fucking hysterical for some reason. My goodness.
No, Zook just sees Eldove disappear, and his reaction in the room is, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
Back in the room. Well, first of all, Eldove, what do you do in this room? Do you do anything dumb?
I'm gonna just try to drag Orphan away from the books.
Okay. Where do you drag her to?
Just to the, over here. Middle of the room.
As soon as Eldove vanishes, you see like a sly grin on Muriel's face, and she looks back at the two of you. And she says, "Seems now I have the upper hand."
There are three of us. I think Tarin's supposed to be down there too.
Yeah, Tarin's supposed to be down
Oh,
there.
sorry.
Does Orphan, move back? Like, does she...
No,
have
no,
any
she's
Eldove
laying on the ground,
wasn't
contorted in
anywhere I am.
anguish for an hour.
yeah.
She's
Eldove
incapacitated.
casts teleportation on herself and Orphan
To where?
to right outside the library.
And it does not function.
Okay.
Back in the room. Yeah, Muriel looks
I'm
at the
there.
three of you. She grins a little slyly. She says, "Well, now I have the upper hand." She says, "My trap didn't work, but it looked like Locke's did."
Now Zook
Pop.
rolls his eyes even harder and says, "Oh, for fuck's sake!"
She says, "Don't get the
Man,
wrong
this place
idea."
is menacing looking. Look at all these chains.
She says, "Locke is an enemy of the cult, but he wants something from you."
I don't think that's a secret.
She says, "What did he offer you?"
Information about traveling between worlds, your name. Boy, I've lost track of all the offers he made. He's pretty long-winded.
Just full of offers.
She says, "Let me be more specific. It seems that Locke taught you the word to open its cache of magic that is connected to this library, but he did not teach you the word to leave it, and no magic will help you get out. Your friends are trapped here until I teach it to you." She says, "I'm prepared to let them die if it serves the purposes of Ith. So perhaps it would behoove you all to be a little more forthcoming with me." What did Locke offer you?
You still have the sphere, don't you?
I
He
am.
does.
I'm just
He's
holding
holding
it. Holding it out in front of me.
Actually, I have a question about that.
Yeah.
Would Eldove's word have worked?
Yeah, it was the same word.
No, but at
Would
the time
the-
that Orphan spoke it, she was downstairs and the orb was upstairs. when Eldove spoke it, the orb was right there in front of all of them.
I'm aware. It worked.
Okay. All right. Just making sure.
Yeah. Zook just kind of looks at the captain, kind of like,
You're in a Mexican standoff now, guys.
Eat your jam, son.
He can't. He needs Arik's permission. Arik is the expert at all things jam.
So Arik leaves to go eat some jam and leaves the two of us in here alone.
So she's saying the cards are all on the table now. You no longer have me at a disadvantage, and now I'm demanding answers of you.
And Zook just kind of says, I'll be honest, again, we were told you would make a better ally than an enemy, and if giving you more information will help you see that, and he kind of looks at the captain and says,
Eternal nod.
then that's fine.
She says, and you'll need me as an ally if you want to see your companions again. So
That's fair.
What exactly is the nature of your deal with Locke? What does he intend to do with Gendrid?
What did he intend to do with Gendron? He wanted the body, right?
Yeah, he wants Gendrid's body.
That's what you tell her?
Did we tell her that?
Yeah.
Okay.
He wants his body.
And she says, in exchange for what? What is Locke offering you?
The true name of one of the ribs. Also, he wants the body and brain and eyes or whatever of that rib, too.
She looks a little confused. What do you mean, true name?
Does Tarin know what that means?
Make me an Arcana check. DC 25, but you can make it with advantage, because you are a warlock with a patron to the Great Old One, and you've dedicated your life to not necessarily researching, but poking at the mysteries of the universe.
I think that's only a 20, but let me find my character sheet real quick.
You can roll it with advantage.
Yeah, I rolled twice.
Oh, did you roll? Okay.
Yeah, it's a 20.
You're not really sure what that means. I mean, you know that there are stories about powerful demons and whatnot having true names and mortal wizards using those names to bind them to their bidding, but you've never seen it in practice. That knowledge came to you just from the lore of the wizard school you studied at very briefly. There are wizards long ago that had supposedly used those kind of names, but as far as seeing it in practice, you're not sure. And you've never heard this suggested in terms of a mortal having such a name. So yeah, she looks confused. She says she doesn't understand what you mean.
The lore would say that it gives you a tremendous amount of power over someone, and now that I'm putting the pieces together, I'm guessing it's not necessarily one of the mortal members of the ribs.
And you see, she's starting to look a little worried, maybe bordering on panic, and she's glancing down repeatedly at the grenade in Zook's hand. She says, he gave you this information to subdue me?
We don't have the information. We haven't agreed to the deal yet.
And at that, she relaxes a little bit.
I'm not entirely inclined to go along with Mr. Locke at this point. He seems useful, but I certainly know better than to just make open-ended deals with demons. And while the offers he's given us are tempting, well, again, and I'll nod towards Arik. Or devils, I'm not sure, honestly.
I was gonna say,
do you know if he's a demon or a devil?
no, she
Or
only
if it should matter?
Never saw him.
Okay.
asked that.
And she shakes her. She doesn't know what he is. So she says, so now the question is, what will you give me to release your companions?
Want this orb?
She says, that would be a start. Remove it from my presence. Let us negotiate on more equal terms.
Do we actually know how to neutralize these things, or do we just have to get rid of them?
You don't. You've just been chucking them out windows. Eldove identified them, though. And Eldove told you what he learned through identification. You can destroy them with damage, but they explode when you do that.
Oh, yeah, and you kind of told us that before, actually, because you were expecting us to attack them.
Right. And the size of the explosion would be proportional to the magic used.
And Zook will say, honestly, The best I can do is put it outside. If it can't see you, it won't work. If I tried to destroy it, it would be bad.
She nods. And,
I'm going to issue a. I'm going to cast send. Oh, well, yeah, you still have the orb, so I'll wait.
Yeah, you can't cast it.
Can't cast shit.
Oh, actually, Zook will say, honestly, if I just put it upstairs and then come back down without it, it won't affect you.
and she motions your hands to the stair.
And Zook starts to walk that way, and he says over his shoulder, kind of casually, "But just be aware, we can make more of these."
And then she turns her attention back to Arik and Tarin.
I wanted nothing to deal with that luck guy. I'm just saying. Want no part of this.
She says that you haven't already made a deal with him tells me that you're wavering as far as your intentions for the cult. You don't know enough to make an informed decision yet. You know less than you let on.
I mean, our decision in terms of the cult is pretty simple. We're going to get rid of Gendred. It's not any good for any plane of existence as far as I can tell. The rest of the cult, yeah, I don't know yet.
And she says, what do you mean you don't know yet?
I don't know if Gendred is using the cult, or if you're right that this is truly its will.
And if it is? If it
Well,
is
we'll see what happens.
the will
We'll
of
see
it?
what happens after we get rid of Gendred.
She says, let's not speak in hypotheticals. If you discover that it is truly its will, that removing Gendred is not enough, then what?
Zook kind of steps in and goes, "Our primary objective is Gendred."
I
Honestly,
understand
I
your
don't-
primary objective. The question is different now.
Honestly, I don't really care about Ith. It's the interplanetary bullshit that I'm worried about.
And if you find that Ith is the source of it, if Gendred is merely his pawn,
We encountered Gendred before he got involved with Ith. So I have no reason to believe that
Jesus.
Ith
Yes.
has anything to do with it.
I recall the story. You commandeered his vessel. He escaped from the ship barely with his life. But that's as far as it goes.
But we can-
What is at stake? Revenge?
No, well, partially, but mostly,
Tarin laughs at that. Just,
but mostly, we want to ensure the safety of this realm and other realms.
She looks over at Arik. And she says, you're not one of the 4 people Gendred asked me to trap. Why?
I'm from here.
What do you mean?
Something about planes of existence and multiple universes. I don't know. It goes all over my head. All I know is I'm from here.
She goes over to one of the bookshelves. And she pushes the top of one of the books. And the shelf flips backward into the wall, revealing a lockbox. She produces a key and opens it and takes it out. And she walks back to you. And she's holding 4 pieces of paper. And she turns them over one by one. And as she does, illusions spring forth from them. Holographic images. One each of Tarin, Orphan, Zook, and Arik. She motions and says, the dwarf we know is dead. She says,
Never met him.
We also know there were others. There was a human woman, an old man, and some sort of dragon creature. Some sort of man-dragon. She says, but only these 4 was I given instructions to capture. And she looks back at Arik. She says, clearly you are part of this company, but you're not one of the 4. What is at stake? Why does Gendred want these 4 alive? Or did, until the dwarf got his head chopped off. Which was pretty fucking funny.
I told you they're from other planes of existence. I don't get it. Doesn't make any sense to me.
She looks over at Tarin and Zook and says, "Do either of you get it?"
So imagine the Shadowfell, instead of being a realm of alternate material, a realm drawn from shadow stuff, imagine it as another world just like Trennis. Now imagine an infinite number of these connected through the astral plane. Do they have... Arik, do you guys have an astral plane?
There is an astral plane, but Arik probably would not have heard of it.
Zook, Orphan, myself, and the dwarf were all from these other worlds. And so was Gendred. And once you arrive here in Trennis, it is apparently impossible to leave.
You see what I mean? I sort of motion to Muriel, like, kind of crazy, right?
Muriel seems to understand it better than you did. I mean, she's a very high-level magic user, so she's used to taking in weird things. And she asks again, she says, "So what is at stake? What happens if Gendred gets all of you?"
Well, if he's right, and he found a way to... what do we want to say here? Lawyer his way into a prophecy by making it technically maybe come true if you look at it the right way. Bringing back the dark god Naruk is my understanding. Which I can't imagine being a good day for any plane.
She says that is, to her best knowledge, the current goals of the cult, are bending their efforts to reviving Naruk. And that she knows vague hints of a ritual that Gendred is undertaking, but she does not know the details. But she says, "I think you do. And I would like to learn them."
I'll tell her about the prophecy, sure.
Okay. Do you leave anything out?
I don't think I can... I won't say anything about Cube, but I don't think I can tell her about the prophecy or any of the other people that she already knows about, so there's no point to not mentioning them. So no, I mean, aside from not explicitly mentioning Cube, I am not going to leave anything out.
Okay. As she says, so if he attains the souls of these 12 such souls, beings from other worlds, he can raise his dead god here.
And we think that he thinks that'll let him leave, if nothing else. Right? Do we think that?
I don't think he cares. I mean, he didn't intend to get trapped here. I'm guessing he would have happily just gone to the next prime after grabbing... Who did he grab here? Fred?
He
Fred.
Captured Fred, but before he had a chance to...
I'm saying that in character.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, Fred.
So my guess is that after grabbing Fred, if we hadn't taken over the ship, he would have gone to the next prime, and until he had gone through a dozen primes and then done it, either returned to his own world or done it there. I don't actually know. I mean, people call me mad, but I'm not trying to revive dead gods of hideousness.
So you can see why it seems... you should see why it seems, forgive me, obvious that this goal is Gendrik's goal. It goes back further than him meeting your dragon. It goes back to before he met us, and it would have gone right past his plane if he didn't get stuck here. There's many doors in, but apparently no doors out. That was part of his plan he didn't count for.